Hey, Owen, this is Bray from Pennsylvania. I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on LGBT people who vote Republican or against their interests?
That was a short voicemail. I appreciate it. There is actually a group out there called the Log Cabin Republicans that is an LGBT Republican group. And it absolutely blows my mind. If you look at the history of the Republican Party, I don't see how you could possibly be in favor of them while simultaneously being gay. You can't. They are directly opposed to your life. In fact, I would venture as far as to say some small percentage of Republicans don't want you to be alive anymore. They want to make it a crime punishable by the death penalty in America to be in a gay relationship. That is voting against your own interests if I've ever seen it. But you know what? People have been voting against their own interests since the dawn of time. Since America started, really, they have been. But it's gotten significantly worse in the past 50 years because of propaganda networks like Fox News, because of the mixture of church and state. There's been a concerted effort to propagandize to undereducated people, as Trump says he loves so much, because they know that they're easy to propagandize to, they're easy to convince of a position if they don't have the information they need to know that Trump is lying, or to recognize that Trump is lying, or the Republican Party in general is lying to them and manipulating them. They're easier to sucker into doing certain things because they haven't gained the critical thinking skills they need to protect themselves from charlatans, basically. I honestly have no idea how you can be gay and simultaneously vote Republican. It blows my mind, but people manage it somehow. Absolutely bizarre.
Hi, Owen. My name's Julian. I'm from Illinois. I'm going to be married come June 1st.
Congratulations. Great news.
Or July 1st, my apologies. And I am just wondering, what happens after they overturn Roe v. Wade? Because that's inevitably going to happen. And, what's going to happen to us who are already married, a part of the LGBTQ, and all this other stuff? I'm just scared of what's going to happen. It'd be cool if you could answer this. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the voicemail. Roe v. Wade specifically affects abortion rights in the United States federally. It makes it so that states are now allowed to ban abortions on a state level, not on a federal level, but on a state level specifically. They are now allowed, or they will be, not yet, but they will be allowed to ban abortions on a state level. That being said, there are still states out there that will keep abortion protections on a state level. Like, for example, New York State, it's enshrined in the New York State Constitution that you're allowed to have an abortion. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. Texas will try to ban it, and many other places, Florida, so on and so forth, but it will still remain available in other states. And there's nothing that anybody can do to stop that, basically, unless they passed a law explicitly banning it on a federal level, and that's just not going to happen anytime soon. So if you need to have an abortion, it is possible to go out of state, worst case. It's going to be more expensive, it's going to be more difficult, but it is doable. You can still have an abortion if need be. Just have to go out of state for it. That being said, there's been talk of overturning marriage rights, like overturning Obergefell, which allows people to get married to somebody of the same sex. If they overturned Obergefell, everybody who is currently married to a same-sex partner would remain married. They can't annul marriages or whatever, and they would continue to get the benefits that straight couples get, as they do now. They would just prevent other people from getting new marriage licenses. They'd prevent it from happening in the future. And there are still some states that allow gay marriage. Like Connecticut, I think, allows gay marriage, whether it's allowed on a federal level or not. It doesn't matter. Connecticut still allows it in their state. So people could still get gay married in Connecticut, and the protections and benefits and rights that come along with being married will follow you from state to state. Whether you're allowed to get married in that state or not, the insurance that you carry at work will still legally have to cover you and your spouse because you're legally married, basically. Now, that being said, I'm not a lawyer. I assume you're asking me a logistical legal question, and that's my understanding of the answer, but don't take this to mean that I am a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination. I've just done a little bit of research on it, and that's what I came up with.
Hi, my name is William, and I'm all the way from Oregon. I want to say first off, I'm really nervous about calling because of my anxiety.
Don't sweat it. You're doing fine.
And second thing, I really appreciate the stuff you do and whatnot. So my question here is, do you think that the right has become more genocidal in terms of rhetoric and just overall the stuff they say about people they don't like? You know, trans people, minorities, gay people, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that makes any sense, but hope you have a good day, and I really enjoy the content you make, and that's it.
Has the right become more genocidal in the rhetoric that they use? Yes, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt they have, to a disturbing degree. I recently covered this guy named Mark Burns, who is using flat-out genocidal language. Not to mention this famous pastor from Steadfast Baptist recently, Jason Ewes or Awies or something like. I don't know how to pronounce his name or what it was, but anyway, Steadfast Baptist Church, they're a branch of the NIFB, and they explicitly said they want the LGBTQ people to go through the criminal justice system. They want to be charged with a crime, and they want to give them the death penalty. And they got very explicit in their description of how they want this to go down. Pastor Mark Burns, running for Congress, said something similar.
The LGBT, transgender, grooming our children's minds is a national security threat because it is ultimately designed to destabilize the republic we call the United States of America. That's why when I'm elected, I don't want to just vote. I want to start holding people accountable for treason.
Okay, and what's going to happen to these quote-unquote treasonous LGBTQ people? What's your plan for them, Mark?
We need to hold people for treason, start having some public hearings, and start executing people who are found guilty for their treasonous acts against the Constitution of the United States of America, just like they did back in 1776.
That's where we are. That is genocidal language if I've ever heard it. And that's not even the worst of it. I can't play the worst of it on YouTube, not because of demonetization problems, but because YouTube will delete my channel. They will delete my channel if I play some of this stuff. All I can do, I can't play it, but I can talk about it and gesture at it and express my support for it. That's all I can do. If I play some of the clips from this stuff, I will not have a platform anymore. YouTube will take it away. Anyway, my point here is I fully support the LGBT community, and I am absolutely disgusted by the genocidal language that they're using right now. That seems to have been normalized at this point. And I hope that we can move in a direction where this kind of language becomes unacceptable again. There's a point in time not so long ago, before Donald Trump got into office, when this kind of language was less acceptable than it is now. But here we are. Thanks, Trump. Next message is an email from Nicholas. The subject is a question about non-theistic death. Hi, Owen. I'm a philosophy student and a lapsed Catholic of about 7 years. As you can admit, there is a comfort in religious certainty about life after death. Example, heaven, the new system, reincarnation, etc. Although it was only recently when I began to consider the implications of finite existence to the extent that I've experienced daily existential crises, contemplating what meaning I can derive from chaos. So you're having a hard time dealing with the fact that you're going to die one day, basically, is my read on the situation, right? And it's bothering you every single day. It's getting to you, trying to find meaning in your life in some way. The question I'm asking is, how do you deal with this omnipresent issue of there being a point where Descartes' first meditation fails? Thank you for your reading or orating onto YouTube and or Twitch, the fearful yet faithless. I appreciate that. Yeah. So the question is, how do I deal with the knowledge that we're going to die one day, and how do I find meaning in my life? I try to affect other people's lives positively. That's really what it's all about for me. And more specifically, I try to affect my kid's life positively in some way. I know that she is going to be deeply affected by anything that I have to pass on to her, any ideas I have to give her, any philosophies or morals or beliefs or whatever. Anything that I pass down to her, she's going to carry with her, and it's created who she is at this point. And she's going to carry that on to the next generation. I will live on through my kid, basically. I will continue on to influence humanity that way. They say you die twice. Once when you take your last breath, and finally when somebody speaks your name for the last time. But really, does anybody ever fully die? There's always some piece of you that lives on to the next generation and the next and the next. Some tradition, some cultural idea or belief or feeling or mindset or something carries on to your kids and their kids and their kids. So my goal is to affect the people around me as positively as possible, make their lives better in some way, and pass on some tradition or cultural value or belief or idea that I want them to have, that I want to remain in this world. And that's all I can do. That's how I deal with it. Oh, and don't think about it. Just push it out of your head. Don't even think about it if you can avoid it. Next email is from Rochelle. Title is Need JW POV Help. I have a niece who started dating a guy who was a JW. She is not a JW, so his family began to shun him. Been there. I was the one being shunned. This made him ask my niece to join his church. Not gonna work. It doesn't work. He's already being shunned. It's not going to improve the situation at all. She doesn't know a lot about religion, so she called me and asked my opinion. Obviously, I told her absolutely not. The last weekend, she brought him to meet me. After talking with him, I found out he's been disfellowshipped currently for the relationship with my niece, but only his mom and brother aren't speaking to him. The rest of the family, I think, believe my niece will eventually convert, and he will return to the church. That's a shame, a lost cause. After finding all this out, we got into a general discussion about his faith, and he was really surprised how much I knew about JWs, thanks to you. Awesome, glad I could help. It seems like he's right at the beginning of questioning all things related to religion, though. Dude sounds like me a few years back. Sounds like where I was when I was on my way out. Still believed it deeply. For years after leaving the religion, after being disfellowshipped, it took me forever to finally find my way out. I told him about my journey out of religion, but I'm ex-Southern Baptist, so it's not the same. Is there a specific video or book that you would recommend from a JW point of view? Thanks, Rochelle from Texas. Oh, that's a tough question. Specific video or book that you'd recommend? Man, I should make a video about that, right? Maybe I should make a video detailing, like, specifically intended to help people find their way out who are in this exact situation. A lot of the books that I've read have been targeted toward people who have questions about it or aren't really quite on their way out yet. Crisis of Conscience was a great book. That was by an ex-governing body member, and it describes all the corruption that happened in the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm trying to think of some very specific video, specific book or something. I guess my recommendation right off the top of my head would be Crisis of Conscience by, oh my god, what's his name? It's totally slipped my mind. Holy Christ, I suddenly cannot remember his name. Yes, ex-governing body member. He left the religion and wrote a whole book about it, about how corrupt it was and everything. Ray Franz. Yeah, Ray Franz is the guy's name. Crisis of Conscience by Ray Franz. I'd recommend reading that. It's kind of hard to get your hands on nowadays, because I think he died, copyright passed to his family members who were still Jehovah's Witnesses, but then that passed off to somebody else. I don't know. Just see if you can find a copy on Amazon or eBay, if not. Anyway, good luck with that situation. Hope for the best, and I hope he finds his way out like I did. Next email is from Says, Small Town Thinking. Howdy, neighbor. Hope all is well with you and yours. Yeah, Says and I are neighbors. Roughly. We live a couple miles apart. Speaking neighborly amiability, do you think, in your opinion, towns can become cults? Not like Mormons or multi-level marketing taking over an entire town, but rather small-town Americana thinking like a hive mind rather than individuals. My best example of these in movies would be Children of the Corn, Stepford Wives, I think is what that is, and literally any Hallmark movie ever created. I've never noticed. Real-life historical examples I could give would be the prevalence of sundown towns, aka racist all-white towns that told black folks not to let the light hit them by sundown. You and I have left small, bigoted towns uneasy about change, but what really made me think about this is when my school counselor told me in middle school, when I suggested that I would go to high school in New York City, "Oh no, dearie, you must choose from the list of schools provided. No one ever leaves this town. Not ever. No one ever leaves." Anyway, let me know what you think, says. I appreciate that. Based on the experience that you and I have had, I think that there's definitely a hive mind element to this, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. If a town can get rallied behind a specific position or hate some specific person or thing for whatever stupid made-up reason they've got, like sundown towns, for example, rallying behind racism. Or like in my example, where I reported a teacher for breaking the law and the entire town turned against me. Or in your example, where you dealt with something similar. That kind of thing happens. It's like a hive mind that takes over and they go completely nuts. They can definitely turn into cults, or they can kind of build a cult-like mentality, a cult-like formation around them. I don't think it's terribly common, but yeah, it definitely happens. And then there are towns that are actually run by full-blown cults, like you mentioned. Towns that are run by Mormons or multi-level marketing schemes. I mean, there are a lot of examples of this type of thing, for sure. Anything can become a cult at any time. It really can. I mean, will it? Probably not. I don't think cults are really that common. I think it's an anomaly, a societal anomaly to become a cult or to become part of a cult or whatever. But it happens enough that an awful lot of people have been affected by it. And that's why I have the platform that I do, because so many people have been affected by it that they come to me to hear me talk about my experiences with it and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it definitely happens, and it's disturbing as hell when it does.